Some common types of nuts are wingnuts, hex nuts, and lock nuts. Recall that strong vibrations can cause fasteners to loosen over time. As a machine vibrates, it creates small spaces between the nut and the object. The small space and vibration cause nuts to loosen over time. A lock nut, aviation nut, locks the threads in place to resist vibrational forces. The inside of a lock nut has a nylon coating. When the nut is twisted onto the bolt, friction melts the nylon. When the nut is on the bolt, the nylon hardens again. The hardened nylon prevents the nut from loosening during vibration. A wingnut has two large metal wings on each side of it. The wings allow you to easily turn the nut by hand. Wingnuts are common when you need to frequently change the tightness of a nut. Wingnuts are also great when a nut only needs to be hand tight. A hex nut is a six-sided nut with a threaded hole in the middle of it. Hex nuts are the most common nuts as they are easier to turn with a wrench. There are two strengths of nuts: standard finished hex nut, and heavy-duty hex nut. Each strength of nut is designed to handle anything below a specific load. When the nut will not experience a large load, use a standard finished hex nut. Standard finished hex nuts are thinner, and cannot handle large loads. You can see a few finished hex nuts in the image to the right. When the nut will experience a large load, use a heavy-duty hex nut. Heavy-duty hex nuts are thicker, and can handle large loads. You can see a heavy-duty hex nut in the image to the right. A stripped nut has a damaged head due to the use of a wrong tool. The head of a stripped nut has been rounded off. For example, a hex nut can become stripped when the edges become round. Stripped nuts are very difficult to remove. Tools cannot grip the rounded edges of the nut. The picture to the right shows a stripped nut. Recall that bolts can have coarse or fine threading. Recall that threading is metal ridges cut into the fastener. Just like a bolt, a nut can have coarse or fine threading. A nut that has less space between threads is a fine threaded nut. It is important to use a fine threaded nut with fine threaded bolts. Using a coarse nut with a fine bolt can damage both fasteners. A nut that has more space between threads is a coarse threaded nut. It is important to use a coarse threaded nut